Hey, double hey, San Francisco Bay, Monterey. My name's Alex Andrew.
And I'm Gretchen Grace.
Sitting in for Dr. Shasta.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, well, we have to have the pretty one here, too, you know. I was going to do this by myself, but I get too nervous when I'm by myself.
Well, thank you. This is fun, though.
It is. Aren't you having a good time?
I'm having a blast.
I know. It's been a while. I mean, you have your own show that we're working on now.
True.
We call her the Detox Fox.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
She's just the master in the whole detox program.
Getting there.
Well, you're close.
True.
Although trying to stick with that whole regime, I have a little bit of a problem with it.
I think most do.
Do we? And it's like, okay, God, boy, that pie looks pretty good right now.
Yeah.
It's really tough sometimes. But you do a heck of a job.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You really do. I talk about a dedicated person.
Thank you.
I really like that.
Thank you. Well, it's good to be here. And thanks for having me. And we have some great guests today.
Yeah, you know, it's unique. This is a little bit different than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, Shasta's got some amazing friends. I just want to say that to you, too, because you are amazing people, right? We have Aeasha Ash, which was, first of all, I had to do my rubber baby buggy bumpers before I said that. Try and say Aeasha Ash, Aeasha Ash, Aeasha Ash, Aeasha Ash.
Beautiful name.
It is. It's beautiful.
Name.
I like it. And she's a ballerina.
Wow.
And I asked a stupid question because I was thinking, I saw ballet and I didn't see ballerina on here. I'm like, they still call them ballerinas. Yes, they do.
We keep him in the closet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, I'm stuck in the studio under lights all the time. I can't see anything. And we have, actually, she's a partner of yours, right, Aeasha?
Yes.
In essence. Her name's Lauren Graves. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes. And we're going to be talking about a great nonprofit. I think this is, it's amazing because, you know, we don't really think about the kids that are, you know, in the inner city, I guess, for lack of a better term, or less fortunate than a lot of the kids that we see, you know, typically around here where, you know, we're at Los Gatos, Saratoga, and so on and so forth. And we just need to start taking care of people. And that's the beautiful thing, I think, about what you folks are doing, how you're involving dance and therapy, if I'm correct. Is that right? Kind of a therapeutic aspect?
The therapeutic aspect of dance, yes.
And, you know, and we've got, I'm kind of feeling like I'm, you know, in the midst of a celebrity here because Aeasha's been a professional ballet dancer for 13 years. And attended the School of American Ballet, right? And we're in New York Ballet.
New York City Ballet.
New York City Ballet. See, wow. That's I grew up in Iowa. We didn't know what New York City was.
Probably not.
No, we remember that commercial when they get the hot sauce and they say New York City.
No.
Oh, okay. No, sorry about that. But she's been a dancer forever. You are retired, though, basically?
Yes. No, I am retired.
You are retired.
It's not basically. I'm retired.
Okay. Well, but you've been in Europe, in Switzerland. You've done all these San Francisco Ballet, too, right?
No. So when I left New York City Ballet, I went off to Switzerland and danced with Maurice Béjart in Béjart Ballet de Lausanne. And then I came to San Francisco and danced with Alonzo King Lines.
Oh,
and that's in San Francisco.
Okay.
And then I went off and worked with Christopher Wheeldon, who at that time had a small company called Morphosis.
Okay.
And then after that, I retired.
See?
I'm telling you.
Wow.
I'm already
That's
worn
amazing.
out. Whoops, I'm sorry. Hey, we're going to be right back after this commercial break talking a little bit more about how this awesome project is put together. So stay tuned to KIYS Radio. Hey, double hey, San Francisco Bay, Monterey. My name's Alex Andrew.
And I'm Gretchen Grace.
And we're back with Your Healthy Living. Gretchen's sitting in for Dr. Shasta.
Yes.
So good to have another beautiful... I'm surrounded by beautiful women today. Look at this.
Lucky him.
I just tell you, my life is wonderful. And we're talking with Aeasha Ash about a really cool program she has. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved with this whole thing? I know you've been around the world and danced in all these beautiful places and so on and so forth. But what kind of brought you back to the United States to really drive into this whole passion that you now have outside of ballet?
Well, I feel like this has always been there. It's always been my mission to dispel stereotypes that exist for women of color, and especially those from underserved communities. I am a child of the inner city. I was born and raised in the inner city of Rochester, New York, from a lower income family, and I went off to become a ballerina and traveled the world. Being a child of the inner city, I was bussed out to a suburban school, and from a very young age, I was faced with adversity. You have a lot of inquisitive children asking things such as, is there a drug dealer on every corner? Do you have a front yard? Do you have a backyard? Do you have grass on your front yard? I mean, and they're just basing that upon the stereotypes that are perpetuated in the media, the things that they see. They have, no other contact with that. And I always saw two sides of how to deal with that. There was one side that I saw a little bit more aggressive and being dealt with in anger and, verbal altercations, which is understandable. They're young, they're adolescents,
Right.
their feelings
Ignorant.
are hurt. Right, their feelings are hurt and or their ego, their identity. And then I saw the other side, which was, the child that just chose to almost hide and almost bury their identity, their color, who they are, their culture, and just wanted to blend in as much as possible. And I took neither side. I was somebody in the middle. And so I always wanted to be judged by my actions. I always wanted to find a way to sort of flip the mirror back on them and find a way creatively to sort of show them what they're saying is probably not that kind.
Right.
Maybe showing them their stereotype or their biases. And that just kind of fast forwarded into my art. At a very young age, I was told, my mother was told that if I wanted to enter the ballet world, it would be challenging as a woman of color. And I took that as a challenge. And I, saw that as just a continuation of something that I always strived for, that
Right.
I was doing that in my day-to-day life anyways. Why not do this through my art?
Right.
And I used my career as a ballet dancer to sort of show the world that, beauty and grace is not defined by status or race.
Right.
And I thought, what better way to do that than as a ballerina? And that fast forwarded me out of my career. I retired a bit early. I gave birth to my first child, which was my daughter. And there was a moment that I was just sitting there on the sofa, and she was playing around the coffee table, and I saw an image come on the screen, and it was just your typical stereotyped image of a woman of color, the very caricatured, vulgar image. And I became very frustrated by that image and thought, what was all the blood, sweat, and tears for? I fought my entire career against what this image that I'm looking at right now. And I was sad at that moment thinking, what else can I do?
Right.
I'm retired. I'm not going back to dancing. I'm not going back to dancing 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. That just was not going to
Well,
happen.
you had a family, right?
I had a
Right,
family,
yeah.
and there are dancers who do it, and that wasn't for me.
Right.
I just didn't want that. And it reminded me of an image I saw on the wall of the School of American Ballet dormitories. When I was a child, I was a student of the School of American Ballet, and we stayed in dorms. It was almost like a ballet boarding school. And there was an image on the wall of then dancer Andrea Long. She, at that time, was the only black female in the company. And so there was a picture of her, and as a student, I looked up to her, somebody who looked like me. And on those days where I felt that I couldn't go on another day, where I just felt my spirit was just crushed, I wanted to just return home. I wanted to be with people who loved me for me, accepted me, found me beautiful, and I didn't have to fight to be accepted into something, especially, I was away from home at a very young age. On those days where I just felt at my lowest, I would look at that image and I would find strength and courage and validation. And in that moment of sitting on the sofa, watching my daughter and watching that image on the screen, I thought, wow, if that image could be so powerful for me, maybe that's what I can do. I can now use images, and that could reach a broader audience than just someone who comes to the ballet and who comes to my particular company.
Right.
And so I went back home, found a photographer, did a photo shoot, and it was very important for me that that photographer just didn't take images of me with like my leg lifted up over my head and
Right.
doing a big jump and having that juxtaposed, in this urban backdrop. It was really important for me that the attributes of a ballerina that one usually reserves for a ballerina and not a woman of color that we usually see on television, that comes through. And not only am I a woman of color exhibiting those qualities, but that I am somebody from that environment exhibiting those qualities, not just some woman of color from a very well-off family, from the suburbs, that I came from this environment and I can exhibit these qualities of a ballerina. And in my mind as an artist, I'm a dreamer. I thought I'm just going to have this big ad campaign. I'm going to post it on, the corner store and the bus stops and, billboards and just put it everywhere. Just kind of, combat every negative image I saw with something positive. And realized that was quite expensive. I had no idea how expensive a bus
Yes.
stop can be and that it's actually rent. Like
Yes.
you have to pay rent.
Yes.
I realized that was not going to happen. And so I had a Facebook page and I said, you know what, let me just throw them on there. And I did without really any captions or anything. And the response that I got back was just overwhelming. And it was nothing like, recently I have an image that went viral. So it was nothing like the viral image that happened recently, but it was enough to give me pause.
Right.
And people were reaching back, saying that the images brought them to tears, that they would have never given up dancing had they seen those images. And that's when I realized I was onto something. And then it began that people began reaching out to me, asking for the images. Can they have them for fundraisers? Can I come and speak at their schools? Can I teach free classes? And then it began to turn into this social experiment of, all right, the images are there and people are just reaching out because it's caused some reaction in them.
Right.
And they're very direct on what they want. I've seen this image. This made me think of this. Can you do this?
Right.
Wow.
I'm
It's
blown
powerful.
away. Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Well, and I think it's really neat because your story has a lot to do with that. Like as you said before, you see women of color that maybe come from a very successful family background or something like that, and nobody really puts two and two together. I mean, it's so sad in the world that if you think about it, the world is really full of bullies in essence. And how do we combat that? But that's why I think your story is cool because you ended up taking the adversity and were able to flip that over and not drive it through that anger channel as much as what can I do to change this?
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. Now I know Lauren, you've met Lauren and she's working with you from kind of a different angle. Lauren, can you kind of touch a little bit on how you two met and what you guys are able to do together?
Yeah. I met Aeasha. I took her ballet class, and then she was teaching ballet class at a studio where I teach. And she started talking about her Swan Dreams project, and it brought up some excitement in me. Before I came to California, I was living in Boston. I was working in the inner city of Boston with a variety of children from ages 3 to 13 mostly, doing therapeutic movement with them. So I was working with young children and helping them build confidence. Some kids need to be brought out of their shells. Some kids need to learn to rein it in a little bit, work on some social skills. And I thought it was I loved what Aeasha was doing. It was something that I was interested in getting back into, working with kids who didn't have the opportunities that a lot of people have in this area. And I thought it would be a great way for us to collaborate together and work together to help this population. I think that what I bring to the project is, especially when we're talking about doing after-school programs.
Right.
Kids are in school all day, right? It's a long day for them. And the creative movement part can be a nice segue from that school to the discipline of the ballet class.
And I want to get right back to that right after this commercial break. So stay tuned to the KIYS Video Web Radio Network.
I'm McKenna Ray sharing with you healthy tips. It's old news that prolonged sitting isn't so good for your health. However, new research shows that spending more time on your feet for example, at a standing desk, is not only healthier, but can help the average person lose weight. According to 46 studies, including 1,000 people, scientists from the Mayo Clinic discovered that standing burns 0.15 more calories per minute than sitting does. And although this might seem like an insignificant difference, 6 hours of standing can burn 56 calories. Accumulate that over the course of a year, and the average person could lose about 5.5 pounds. According to LA Times, if you were then to accumulate that over the course of 3 years, a person could lose up to as much as 22 pounds just from spending more time on your feet. Although this might be a little unmanageable for the average adult who has a desk job or a cubicle job, if you were to spend 12 hours sitting down and you could cut that in half, you would see significant benefits to your health over the course of a certain amount of time. So my tip to you is to pay attention to how long that you're spending sitting in a chair, whether that's at your desk or in front of the TV or on your computer, and see if you can't cut that time in half. Not asking for you to be super active, but simply standing or walking around, whatever it is. If you can cut that, if you can pay attention and switch that up, in the long run, you'll see some awesome differences.
Hey, my name's Alex Andrew.
And I'm Gretchen Grace.
Sitting in for Dr. Shasta here on Your Healthy Living.
Yes.
Having fun.
Having a blast.
I think I'm going to become a ballerina after today's show.
I want to watch.
Except I can't stand on my toes. I never got that whole toe thing.
That is a talent.
You don't need to.
Oh.
Usually the men don't.
Well, thank you.
Well, that's
I just
good.
need to know how to throw you up in the air. And
Exactly,
stuff.
and catch me.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's the important part, right? I can throw you way up there. I just don't know how to catch you.
Don't forget the catching.
Laura, you were kind of just finishing off on talking about this whole movement thing, and I think let's kind of complete that segment of what you were talking about, working with kids and dealing with the movement thing.
Right. So I think, well, two aspects. One is that, and Aeasha and I are hoping to start some after-school programs for kids. And I think one thing is giving the kids a chance to do something a little more free-form. Ballet it's a strict discipline.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun. It's a blast. It's beautiful, and it's a whole lot of fun. But kids do need, it is very focused. So the work that I do with kids, what I really strive for is meeting them where they are. So if a child has enthusiasm and excitement, I want to help them channel that in a way that's helpful for them.
Like communicating their language, basically.
Yeah. And then sometimes there are children who are a little withdrawn. They're not very confident. And you want to help them, bring them out a little bit, to free themselves up, to be able to take a chance, to try something new and to do something that they haven't ever done before. Those two things work in tandem in the kind of movement groups I do with children. To bring out the best in kids,
right,
and to help them to have fun, but there's still structure. There's still structure around them, and that structure can help them get ready for what's going to be asked for them in a ballet class. So we thought it would be a good combination there to have a little break from after school, have some fun, but also preparing them while having that fun, preparing them for that discipline.
Sounds like a great dovetail with you two. I love that. And speaking of that, we talk about, laughter and music and dance, really coming from that heart of love and loving energy. And I can see that in both of you, but the passion that you have, Aeasha, and kind of where you came from, where you are now, and what you've experienced, to be able to approach that not from just the egocentric I'm going to get back at you thing, which we were talking briefly on the break. Love is that light that brings everything out, where hate and evil is darkness that people just wander around in, and there's no real goal in sight.
And I have to say, to be fair, I'm not superhuman. I definitely have those feelings inside, and it takes swallowing that down. Just last year I had to deal with racist comments being thrown at my own children. At the time they were, 7 and 4. It's like, what, your initial reaction, is, you become this mama bear. It's just
Right.
that you immediately want to just, attack back. But you realize, nothing good comes from that place of anger and hatred and frustration and rage. So it took my entire career just sort of swallowing that back down. And even
Right.
before my career as a child, going out to those suburban schools, it took a moment of just sitting back, swallowing that pride for 1 second and going, what's going to be the most effective?
Right.
Yeah.
And what's most effective is changing that person who made that comment that
Right.
may not have been so kind, and showing them that that was not so kind.
Right.
Because I can say it, and I know that to be my truth, and I know that to be truth. But if they never realize that, and if they're never shown that, they're going to go on and then do it to the next and the next and the next.
Right.
A perfect example of that is when I was as a company member. When you dance in a company class, you stand in the back of class sometimes, and you do the steps going towards the front, and then you make you take yourself around the side of the class, and you come back to the back again. And while you're waiting there, usually huffing and puffing, it's pretty intense and hard. You've been
Right.
working hard, so you usually lots of dancers stands with their hands on their hips, and they're kind of huffing and puffing and waiting for their turn again. And I'll never forget that there was a principal dancer who's somebody I admired, and I still to this day admire. But they came past me and thought that they were being funny and just put their hands on their hips and looked me in the eyes and just went, And it was just that very stereotypical, classic
yeah.
of, let me, do the black woman thing, whatever that is. And of course, that first visceral reaction is, well, what do you mean? I'm so offended. And instead, I took a moment and swallowed, and I looked to my left. And to my left, it was just like, this was handed to me. Almost every dancer was standing with their hands on their hip.
Beautiful.
Almost every dancer.
Wow.
And so I looked at them, and I just looked to the side. I went, but everyone's standing with their hands on their hips. And that's all I said. They turned beet red.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
never happened again.
Wow.
They just went, oh, sorry, I'm just kidding. But in that moment, I taught them something without really saying anything.
Right.
I made a gesture. I said, everyone's doing this. And that was enough said.
Well, it completely de-escalated the situation too, and I think that's
Yeah.
what a lot of people just don't realize is when it's why pour more gasoline onto the fire?
But it takes patience.
It does.
Yes.
It
It
does,
really does.
and it does.
And
It takes
practice.
a lot of practice.
Yes.
And like I said, I have been practicing this since the first grade.
Wow.
I've been up face to face with this since I was a child. So I've had a lot of practice. And I do have patience. So
Well, I love this, the Swan Dreams. It's really, you're infusing love to bring understanding so that these children are able to go, oh, wow, I didn't consider, or maybe they didn't know. And that's a beautiful gift that you're bringing to the world.
Can you touch on the project?
yeah,
that you're
so
doing?
the Swan Dreams project is basically where I use my art form, which is ballet, and photography, and I sort of merge those two together to put out images that my hope is to sort of challenge stereotypes that exist for women of color, and in particular those from underserved communities, which myself, I'm from a lower income family. And I just do that through imagery. So there's no words. There's just that image, and the reaction I get back from the image. All of the images themselves have been exactly what I wanted. There's been people writing me saying they're in tears, they can't stop crying just looking at the image. I started off just going into my community, which was the inner city of Rochester, New York. I just went out with my tutu and point shoes, and I'm not really dancing. It's not like I'm doing Swan Lake. I'm very retired, but just doing, just some movement to get some shots, and just being out there. And the idea is to expose my community to this art. And less, I feel like a byproduct of what I'm doing is bringing more from my communities and underserved communities into the ballet world and exposing them to that. But the main objective of the project is just to put another image of women of color out there, to also show our young boys and girls that they're more than a stereotype on the screen. I feel that women of color are constantly given only one image and one image only, and that's changed. I feel like every decade it's something new. There was a recent video that went viral and it went through the time period. It was sort of a timeline that we started off as the Mammies, then we were the Jezebels, then we were the angry black woman, and now it seems to be the new role is the strong black woman, that nothing breaks her down and she can conquer it all and, never shed a tear. And what I would like to challenge is what, a very famous Nigerian writer, Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi, constantly talks about, is that we are often given just one story. And I think that dehumanizes us, that we are more than one story. And that's what the Swan Dream Project wants to put out, that women of color, there's moments of anger like every woman, like every human being. But there's also moments of weakness and vulnerability. There's moments when we laugh, when we scream, and when we cry. And I think with all of this conversation now around diversity in ballet and getting more black and brown ballerinas, we're not tackling it as a society issue, because what happens is once you get into a ballet company, you get typecast.
Right.
You're not the swan or the angel or the princess, and that's slowly changing. But I think once I left the dance studio, I went out into society. I saw magazines. I saw picture books, even buying books for my child and sheets, and no princess looks like her, no fairy looks like her.
Right.
So I want society to see us in a different way.
If somebody wanted to see this, how do they get a hold of it? I mean, how do they look at it?
They just come to my website. It's www.theswandreamsproject.org. I have all my links on for social media. I have a way to donate. I speak about the project. I speak about my career. There's some videos. I've been in lots of articles and news publications, so there's a lot to find out.
Well, and one of the things too that we did want to put out there, I know you guys are looking for some space to hold some of these after school projects involving this. I don't know if anybody out there that sees this
please
might want a tax deductible donation by
Yes.
renting an empty studio out.
We would
Yeah.
love
By the way,
that.
I am a financial advisor. You call me first and we'll talk about how you get those tax deductions.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Aeasha
Thank
and
you.
Lauren. We
Very much.
appreciate
for
it.
having us.
Yeah.
Don't forget to check us out on KIYSradio.com and see all our shows. Thank you very much. Thank you so much,
you.
Gretchen, for sitting in for Shasta.
Yeah, thank
Have a
you.
great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.